This movie was kind of like Goonies Go Vampire, and everyone in it was 8. There was not a girl. They were the Frog Brothers were Cub Scouts, and it was very G-rated. It was very wholesome, you know. And so as I read it, I thought, I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to do this. So I called my agent, and I called Mark, and I called Dick to tell them I wasn't going to do it. But it was lunchtime, and they were all out, and I went running. And while I was running, I thought, you know, it's just a cave in this movie, but why couldn't it be this kind of Death in Venice hotel that fell into the San Andreas Fault? And, you know, why couldn't the vampires be teenagers? And why couldn't it be sexy? And why couldn't they look like English gypsies? And why couldn't they be on motorcycles? And by the time everybody called back, I said I'd like to come in and talk to them.
I had a suite of offices, and I moved him into an office and kind of left him alone. And I walked in one day, and there on the bulletin board behind him, he had done these cutouts of what the costumes should be for the people. And I looked at it, and I said, I couldn't believe what a great decision we had made, because in no way in hell would I have ever come up with that sense of style and that bizarreness that Joel had.
When I had first read the original screenplay for Lost Boys, I was a little concerned because the whole thing had been written really for 13 and 14-year-olds to play it. And it was Joel who kind of started to stretch some of the characters' ages out. So I would be 18. Jason Patric was, I think, in his early 20s. And so the picture got broader. It was also at a really young point in my career when I certainly had not done enough work to get a sense of what was going to be good or what was going to be bad. And so a lot of trust was required between myself as an actor and a director. And Joel had such a fantastic sense of style that I remember knowing that this was going to be special. No one had costume, no film at that time had costumes like that or had a look like that. And you could just see it. You could see it from the sets to the wardrobe to the makeup, all the way down the line. And I remember being just amazed to just see from the original screenplay that I read to watching the movie that he was making, they were really two completely different entities. And that's when I started to realize the incredible power a director has.
I love being with a director who knows how to use the energy you have. And Joel is really good at using that. He knows exactly what the strength of an actor is and uses that quality. Joel never does anything that's absolutely standard. I think you mentioned it before when we were talking before we started. He's successful in a lot of different genres and types of films. But there's always an element, oddly enough, there's always a moral element in his films that I don't think people give him credit for. He tackles a lot of subjects that are difficult. An 8mm. I mean, that's the best performance I've ever seen Nick Cage give. It's just, it's terrific. And it goes in very uncomfortable places, but not for prurient reasons. He doesn't do it just to make a sexy movie or a dirty movie. He's really trying to say something about it, and that there is something in the human condition that needs to be addressed. And this one is an awful lot of fun because there is something that we can all identify with.
I hadn't worked that closely with a director in film before, and he kind of made it like summer camp. And I guess maybe that was a sort of a theory of directing for him, was keeping it fun, keeping us excited, and encouraging camaraderie together. And when it came to the directing, I think that he was always so excited about things that it just, when he wanted something a certain way, I was happy to do it, and he was able to articulate things really well. And he really made the whole thing a lot of fun.
Every morning, it's my dudes, and he'd come in all happy and good morning, let's do this, and you know, and I had a great rapport with Joel. When people watch The Lost Boys, I don't think they really realize that they're watching it through Joel's eyes. You know, literally watching it through Joel's eyes. I mean, he was there every step of the way, you know, on everything, not only like location scouting, things he didn't have to be there for, he was there for, you know, so it was his baby.
I just think Joel has so much foresight as a director, as a filmmaker. And for him to actually have a film where he's allowed to become as explosive and expressive with the wardrobe elements and the set design. And you have to understand that Joel's basically done every job through the course of his career, from writer on up and writer on down in film, from costume designer, production designer, right across the board. So he really, in this, the film lent itself to someone being able to have their hands in all of that.
I could never have done it as well as he did it, because I never saw this wonderful, bizarre take Joel has.
That was Joel's vision, you know, and it worked out wonderfully. As I said, I think this is in some ways the most personal and heartfelt of all Joel's movies, the ones that I've seen anyway. And he really, there was something in this movie that he really responded to, personally, you know. And it shows.
The day I met Schumacher was it. And you know what? I owe a lot of this to my wife, Lauren. Because as soon as I said I was moving on, she said, Schumacher, 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 Schumacher. And he's still a good friend. We still send the same bottle of champagne back and forth on our birthdays. Make a little nick in the thing. I know it's the same one.
Where's Nosferatu?
Who?
Prince of Darkness.
Nightcrawler, the Bloodsucker.
El Vampiro.
Mike! They're here!
You know, there's a couple of ways to approach these films. One is you can attack it straight on as a horror film, but now change those words from horror to mystery, suspense, thriller. And you've got an approach to the film that you're asking the audience to believe everything they're seeing, that there could be a reality. Or you attack it that it's that much bigger than life. And if it's that much bigger than life, and you still want to make it scary, but you still want to relate to the people, the best way to do that is find a little bit of sense of humor in it. Because then you've broken down a barrier. People kind of like those people. You can smile and enjoy them, and all of a sudden, when that thing appears behind them, you're going to scream before they will.
The great Jeff Bohm really worked with me when we made it older and, you know, to use the horrible phrase, hipper, the unhippest phrase in the world. But there was some humor in it, mostly from the Frog Brothers.
We're dedicated to a higher purpose. We're fighters for truth, justice, and the American way.
Right.
A lot of the humor in the movie we made up on the spot. The studio was really not prepared for that. So one of the biggest problems with making the film was that Mark Canton, who was president of the studio, kept coming to see me and saying, you know, the CEOs want to know, are you making a horror movie or a comedy? And I would say, go back and tell them yes. And then he would come back and say, but they don't think those two genres will work together. That you can either scare people or you can make people laugh, but you can't do it together. So then I would say, go back and tell them to pray. So I think he was really afraid I was going to be replaced.
You're creature of the night, Michael. Just like out of a comic book. You're a vampire, Michael. My own brother, a goddamn shit-sucking vampire. Oh, you wait till Mom finds out, buddy.
If somebody asks you, is it a comedy or is it a drama or is it, I mean, what are you going to tell them? Yeah, you're right. Oh, what do you mean I'm right? Yeah, you're right. What you just said, no, I asked a question. Oh, I thought it was a positive statement. Oh, no, it's a question. What would you say that is about? Yeah, it's a comedy. It's a, hey, right, you got it. What are you going to do? You're not going to get into an argument with them and try to, if they don't understand it, wait till the movie comes out. You may never work again, but you got to go by your own convictions.
I thought it was the way to do it. I thought it also gave the audience entertainment so that it wasn't just all horror, 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 they're vampires.
They're awesome monster masters. The meanest, the baddest.
Holy shit! The attack of Eddie Munster!
Get him!
Then we had this research screening in Long Beach. The first one, 750 people. When I got there were 750 people online. And I thought, how do they even know about this movie? There's no stars in it. In those days, you didn't have a whole internet life going on before you made a movie. And that research screening, I'll never forget as long as I live. It was like a rock concert. I mean, it rocked the house. And there was this bunch of surf punks in the third or fourth row. They got so excited at one section, they ripped their seats. They ripped the upholstery out of their seats and started throwing the stuffing around.
Just so you know, if you try to stop us or vamp out in any way, then I'll stake you without even thinking twice about it.
Chill out, Edgar.
It was great. And after that, you never saw so many happy executives in your whole life. That was fun. That was really, really fun.
You are a killer.
There have been so many vampire movies made since movies began, since silent films. And I know that there's a cult of, vampire experts and lovers and all of that. And I think the reasons that vampires are the most fun monsters to do is because they're very, very, very sexy. The werewolf is not sexy. Frankenstein is not sexy. A lot of the famous monsters, the mummy is not sexy. They're really, they're creatures of horror. But the concept of, a dashing man who's a count in evening clothes appearing at the beautiful young woman's window at night, and then systematically draining the fluids from her body so that she surrenders to him is very sexual.
You have to approach vampires with the belief, as a filmmaker, that this is real. When you sit with your actors and you're discussing it, or you're sitting with your director, or you're sitting with writers, how do you approach it? You're going to coach as a total comedy, that's one thing. But if you're going to try and convince an audience that it's real, then you got to believe it. And you got everybody around you's got to believe it. And if they don't believe it, then they're not going to be delivering to that screen what you want. And it's such a scary freaking thing. If you want to scare people, find the things that's going to scare them. And that things that go bump in the night are pretty scary. Things that go in the night are pretty scary. And when your best friend, she turns around and bites you in the neck, and it's not just a love tap, but it's, oh God, things are pretty scary.
Initiation's over, Michael. It's time to join the club.
Flirting with the dark side always has had its fascination, because you learn, and there's wisdom there, and especially in post-Freudian era with Jung, that the shadow is 90% gold, that you have treasures there that you need to learn about yourself to be a whole person.
Don't fight, Lucy. It's so much better if you don't fight.
Mom, don't!
Sucking blood, making someone your love slave. The fascination with throwing over what we're supposed to do, as opposed to what we really want to do.
everyone just thinks that vampires are so cool. You know, really, the fangs, the long hair, the look. Plus, you're also watching, like, let's say, Interview with a Vampire, even the Lost Boys. All the vampires are like, you know, and I'm totally heterosexual, love women, but like the guys are gorgeous.
I think it's sex. I think when it comes down to it, it's the sex of the sex appeal of this underculture. People want to go out, they want adventure, and I think maybe it offered us some adventure, some sexy adventure.
Sleep all day, party all night. Never grow old, never die. It's fun to be a vampire. That is a great fountain of youth concept. Of course, your soul is damned, but we don't worry about that too much when we're young.
I think that that's what Lost Boys really did, is it put some sexy style, some, you know, charisma on it, and made the whole thing more appealing and more romantic to everybody. The idea of, hey, you know, you're not just dead. You're dead with bonuses.
The thing is, the Lost Boys are dead. And also, the Coreys got to be men. So it would have to be a new invention. I always thought they should do Lost Girls. I think they should do a teenage girls motorcycle gang who are vampires. I think I would go see that.
Everyone, even yesterday someone said to me, excuse me, when are they doing Lost Boys 2? And I'm like, well, I hope never. I don't want them to ruin Lost Boys 1. You know, certainly we should not have a sequel, but no, you gotta do Lost Boys 2.
Oh, yes, I've heard all the rumors. I've contacted once, actually. My agent had heard one. And would you be, I said, of course I'd be interested. What are you, nuts? But it's a question of getting all those guys together. And I probably wouldn't be involved in it anyway, because I did get the stake up the, you know, in the thing. So, but yeah, I'd love to do another one. As long as it's really hip and kind of cool and fun.
We were toying with a sequel. We were toying with doing a film on the Frog Brothers alone, because I thought they really stood out. They were wonderful.
And it was going to be how the Frog Brothers had their own vampire killing business now, and they'd grown up, and they were actually working in Washington because there was a bunch of political vampires. Go figure. That's irony.
I'd like to do Max Returns. What you saw in the fireplace, he's reconstituted. Where they can reconstitute anybody, right? Just a little DNA, and they sort of grow Max again in a tube, and he comes out again. So, Joel, let's make another one.
The other one I heard about was Lost Girls. Now, this was just a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago, I think. There was a rumor that they are going to make a Lost Boys sequel, but it's going to be Lost Girls, and it's going to be all girls, and they've written a script, and it's going to be great. Now, I heard about that one. Of course, I wasn't too interested because I was like, well, I could get a sex change operation, but I don't know if it's worth it. Is the character going to stretch? What would his name be? It would be Edwina Frog, and I just don't know if anybody's going to buy it. So, I mean, I was willing to do whatever it took.